it doesn't matter as long as I'm rocking with you. No, it doesn't matter as long as I'm rocking with you.
Everybody get up.
Good Monday morning. Thanks for tuning in. This is Sissy Figglestaller, and you've tuned in now to Sissy Social Circle. Glad you joined us. Well, this morning I have a little bit something different I'm going to do. Normally I start off with my guests in the studio, but this morning we're going to have Maurice Saliba. He's a local personality here and a fitness trainer. He's going to come in at 10 o'clock and talk with us about his business that he has. He's taking it on a national level, and it's about fitness and nutrition and getting healthy. And so it kind of goes in line with what we've been doing this month, which is, all of the healthy trends starting out in January. Something I thought about yesterday I wanted to share with you. So many people are taking nutritional supplements, and I did want to warn you all. We talked about essential oils last week, but it's something that you really need to be careful of, because if you are taking a supplement from a company, you need to know what exactly is in that supplement. And there are companies out there that are becoming more and more popular, and they are not telling you what is in that, what the ingredients involve. And I just saw the other day a girl that had said a family member had lost 12 pounds in 8 days. And folks, that is not healthy. So if you hear any claims like that, that's not good for your body. And if you talk to any doctor, they'll tell you that that's not something that you should be on, and that's not the healthy way to lose weight. And most likely when you go off the supplements, you'll gain all the weight back. So with that said, Maurice will be in at 10, and we'll talk more about supplements, health, exercise, and diet. Well, in news today, app happy. So everyone is talking about apps, and everyone seems to be glued to their iPhones or their smartphones, and everyone's looking for new apps and great apps for 2014. One that I found recently, and I was just looking at this last night, is an app a friend of mine told me about, and it's called Stitch Fix, and it's becoming very popular. You go to the website and you type in your weight, your body type, preferences, and they'll give you groupings of clothing. Do you like this a little bit? You like some, you like all? And they ask you a multitude of questions, and you sign up for this, and once a month they will send you an outfit, a package in the mail. It's completely free shipping both ways. So receiving it, and if you choose you don't like the outfit and you want to send it back, completely free. So it's sort of like a surprise in the mail. It's your own personal stylist. I found it very interesting, but also the one thing, I went through the whole questionnaire last night and was excited to get signed up to do it. But then at the end, it said, what is your price range for the different things? So for jewelry, tops, skirts, dresses, and things like that, what's your price range? And I think the lowest price range that they offered was $50 to $100. So I started to do it, but then I decided not to, because I really thought, I think my husband would kill me if I did that. You get a $300 outfit in the mail, and it charges on your charge card, and I don't know what the process would be on how quickly they would refund that if you didn't like the outfit. So I thought, I'm not going to do that. But for some people, they really do like it. Well, are you happy now? As part of a settlement with the FTC, Apple has agreed to refund customers $32.5 million for in-app purchases made without their knowledge. It all comes down to a flaw in the App Store. After you input your password to authorize a purchase, unlimited additional purchases can be made over the next 15 minutes without further consent. So keep that in mind if you have small children that play on your phone. I, for one, yes, I have an iPhone. Yes, I have 4 children. I have no games on my phone. And the reason why is because if I did, they would constantly be grabbing for my phone. So just an FYI, if you have small children, don't put games on your phone. It may keep them occupied for a little bit at a restaurant, but you could be one of the people who have unlimited additional purchases on your phone. Many iPhone and iPad users weren't aware of this and learned about it the hard way by letting their children make a single purchase, only to find out they'd rung up huge bills on additional purchases. And I can attest to this. We have a friend of the family who lives in Chicago. She has 4 boys like I do, and she got her bill for the month, and she had $900 on her credit card statement. And it was from her son playing games and just clicking yes, yes, yes. So she called the iTunes. She called to dispute it, and I believe they ended up negotiating it down to $600. But she still had to pay $600. So just that's FYI, keep that in mind. The FTC says Apple received tens of thousands of complaints. In addition to the refunds, Apple will also be required to change its billing procedures to prevent similar incidents in the future. It's not just surprise unauthorized purchases people hate paying for. Researchers forecast that by 2017, almost 95% of apps downloaded will be free. So keep that in mind. You don't need to pay the high prices now. Most likely you could probably find one free, if not now, in the future. Overstaying their welcome. A battle is unfolding between a group of elderly men in Queens, New York, and a local McDonald's. For the last few months, the men have gathered at Mickey D's to chat over coffee and an occasional single order of French fries. They often show up as early as 5 a.m. and stay until after sundown, and it's becoming a problem. McDonald's employees say it's bad for business. Other customers are complaining there's nowhere to sit, sometimes asking for refunds on their meals. The cops have even gotten involved. But the stubborn seniors argue that as paying customers, they have every right to sit there as long as they please. The issue raises questions about how long it's appropriate to hang out at a restaurant, coffee shop, or other establishment. Here's a tip. If you're going to stay all day, make sure you at least buy more than a single cup of coffee. Free Wi-Fi is a privilege, not a right. I can remember a few years ago, I don't know if any of you have ever been to this restaurant or not, but it's one that I grew up eating at, and it's Bee's Restaurant in Rossville. I love it. It's fantastic. But if you didn't grow up going there, you might find it disgusting. And you sit there at a table with other people, and there's a Lazy Susan in the center. And my children love the Lazy Susan, turning it. And I can remember each time I was pregnant, I would crave that food. And when my hand would reach towards the fried chicken, I would be shaking. I just couldn't get it in my mouth fast enough. It was the best. So my friend Linda and I would go there, and we would go there. Of course, we love to talk, and so we used to work together. So we would go for lunch, and I think about this, weren't we hard workers? We would go eat for lunch. In 3 hours, we would still be sitting there. And I would say, we would, and Linda and I would say, I wonder if we just sat here another hour, if we ate dinner, do we get charged twice? Or can we just sit here all day and have all our meals? But anyways, they were real nice about it. We only did that a couple times. It was fun. Good times. Well, on another note, maximum insecurity. Talk about a small man complex. Research found that men feel insecure, if even just subconsciously, when their female partners are successful. Experts say this power struggle dynamic can cause guys to feel inadequate or threatened. In fact, men appear to directly interpret women's successes as their own failures, even when they're not competing with one another. On the other hand, women feel better about their relationships when their male partners succeed. Can't we just be happy for each other and leave it at that? It's very interesting. I do find that it is difficult for women who are successful, or maybe they're physicians, to find a mate who is of equal education, or that's at least accepting and supportive of them. Smoke out. Here's something that's interesting. Take it outside. Chicago just passed an ordinance that bans the use of e-cigarettes indoors. The ruling will apply the same restrictions to e-cigs as a traditional tobacco product. Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel said the decision will protect our children from getting hooked on their kid-friendly flavors and marketing. Many cities are mulling similar bans while they wait for the FDA to come up with its own regulations of the nicotine vaporizing devices, which some smokers use as a quitting aid. Meanwhile, a group of senators are getting in on the action, blasting the recent Golden Globes for glamorizing the e-cigarettes. Guess they didn't quite get the joke. With that said, some states I do know have outlawed the use of cigarettes while children are in the car. That's one thing as I drive down the road, I do not understand why that's not illegal. And maybe that's my own personal opinion. But to see a parent or two parents driving down the road with a child strapped in a car seat that can't get fresh air, windows rolled up, I just don't understand it. Here's another one, poo-pooing shampoo. Here's the straight dirt. Blogger Jacqueline Byers hasn't washed her hair in 5 years. I can guarantee you she's not married, and if she is, I can't imagine what he looks like. Byers wanted to avoid the chemicals found in most shampoos, and after experimenting with natural products, decided to join the no-poo movement. She now rinses her hair with water twice a week and says her stripped-down routine has resulted in shinier, softer, healthier locks. I would say greasier, too. And stinkier. That's pretty nasty. Under lifestyles and baby talk, it's one of the most frequently debated issues. Do children belong in upscale restaurants? I can tell you from my own experience that before I had children, and now, of course, I have 4 children, I would go on a business luncheon, maybe kind of like the one where I sat at B's for 3 hours, and other people would have their children there, and the children would be crying. And I would think to myself, good grief, people, stay home. Ruin your own lunch. Why do you have to ruin mine? Now, fast forward a few years, and I'm the one ruining everyone's lunch. And if I get those dirty looks, I think, mind your own business. They're my kids. So it's a double standard when it's you. The chef of a Michelin-starred restaurant in Chicago, Alenia, recently took to Twitter to ask that very question. After a party brought their crying 8-month-old infant to the top-rated restaurant on a Saturday night, Chef Grant Achast tweeted, "Table brings 8-month-old. It cries. Diner's mad. Tell people no kids? Subject diners to crying? People take infants to plays, concerts. Hate saying no, but..." Responses ranged from people who defended the parents, suggesting their babysitter may have canceled at the last minute, to those who argued in favor of a baby ban. To dine at Alenia, patrons must reserve tickets in advance, which can cost up to $300, not including drinks, tip, and tax. It's Chicago's only restaurant to receive Michelin stars, and it made last year's list of the world's top 50 restaurants. The point is, it's not the most kid-friendly place in town. Alenia wouldn't need to worry about banning babies if people just used a little common sense. And I totally agree. Although, for myself, I have so many kids that a crying baby doesn't bother me. I'm just thankful it's not my own, and I'm able to phase it out. But before I had kids, or maybe as I get further away from the small children, it really would be bothersome and annoying. I'll be honest, I find it that way in church. I shouldn't, probably, of all places, but I do. When there's somebody that has a crying baby, and I think, I've been there, done that, but no one else can pay attention. We can't even hear. And I think most of all, it's rude to whoever's speaking, because they can't hardly focus. I see their eyes constantly shifting, and it's not intentional, but it's just distracting. It's naturally distracting. And the baby can't help it. So do us all a favor. Take the baby out. Come back when the baby's calmed down. I'll tell you a good piece of advice I had. Some of you know I know Judy Varnell in town. And I love Judy. And she's so opinionated. And I was just having this conversation the other day about Judy. She's one of my favorite people. She's just charismatic, and she tells it like it is. When we had our first child, and we were so nervous about leaving the baby in the nursery because, well, he was our first, and we just felt like we didn't know the people in the nursery. Judy stopped us one day after services and said, "Hey, listen here." And our baby at the time was 5 months old. She said, "I was watching the two of you up there," and we always sat at the front of the church. And she said, "I was watching the two of you up there, and you didn't pay a bit of attention to that sermon. You need to have that baby in the nursery." You know what? She was right. She was right. We did not pay any attention because we were too busy fiddling with the baby, entertaining the baby, shifting the blankets and everything. So the next Sunday, really to avoid her having a confrontation with me again, I put him in the nursery. We were able to listen, and she was right. She has a lot of wisdom. So if you don't know her, you should. So that was my plug for her. But on another note, snack attack, talking about food. Free food at work is a blessing and a curse. An increasing number of companies are offering employees gratis grub for a variety of reasons to show their appreciation. As incentive for putting in longer hours and even in place of an actual raise. But while bagels, pizza, communal candy bowls, and fresh baked goods may be sweet treats, some workers say this perk has an unhealthy side effect, derailing their diets. They complain that the temptation of ever-present food is impossible to resist, and they pack on pounds. Experts say companies would be wise to offer more nutritious snacks instead of cookies and chips. Research shows workers who make healthy food choices throughout the day are more productive. I believe this is putting more responsibility on an employer that doesn't need to be there. How about personal accountability, folks? If you don't want to eat it, don't eat it. Don't blame someone else for being fat. That's what I say. And if you can't keep your hand out of the candy bowl, turn your chair around so you can't see it. Just simple. It's easy. RIP text. OMG, texting may be on its way out. For the first time last year, the number of text messages sent in the UK declined, and it's expected to continue to drop, with instant messages outpacing texts twofold by the end of 2014. Experts believe young people are opting for web-based messaging services like Snapchat over traditional texting. It's not hard to see why. These apps let them communicate with multiple people at once and include photos and videos with their messages. Plus, they're cheaper than texting plans and often totally free. I, for one, takes me a while to get on the bandwagon. I'm great with texting, and I like that better than going to an app like Snapchat and doing a picture. I'm not always in picture mode friendly anyways. I'm not always picture ready, so text messaging works for me. That's hot. Doesn't this just warm your heart? One online dating site reported a 50% increase in new memberships during last week's deep freeze. The service also saw a nearly 30% spike in messages during the so-called polar vortex. In fact, some of the nation's coldest cities, including Portland, Maine, and Chicago, experienced the largest rise in signups. Let's just hope those passions haven't cooled you. Now, we were just talking about apps, so going back to apps again, a new app quits for you. You've heard of breaking up via text message? Well, now you can break up with your job the same way. The Quit Your Job app from employment company The Ladders helps users determine exactly why they want to ditch their gig, then crafts and sends a final text message to their boss. While the app is mostly meant to be a joke, the creators have a point when they say that despite countless technological advances, we still quit our jobs the same way we did hundreds of years ago. I could tell you one way I quit my job once was with a sticky note on my boss's computer. And the reason why was I was looking to get into pharmaceutical sales, and finally, after so many interviews, I was offered a job. It came at such a great moment. I remember I cried on the phone. I had taken a job with IBM fixing computers, which is a joke in itself because I don't know anything about computers. They didn't know that, but I did deep down. And so I took the job, and I was on the job 3 weeks. It was probably a matter of time before they figured it out. I didn't know anything. So I was on the elevator, and I got the phone call from the district manager that they were offering me the job in pharmaceutical sales. I was so happy, A, because I really wanted the job, and B, because I was going to be found out before long that I didn't know anything about computers. And so I had to go find my boss because the new manager that was offering me the position said, I need you in Knoxville in an hour and a half. Can you be there to sign paperwork? With a job like that, too, as soon as they offer you the job, you have to go directly to get drug testing. There's no limit. Can you give me 2 weeks? That's not going to work for them. So you have to go right then. And so there was a lot that had to be done at once, and I couldn't find my boss. I couldn't find her anywhere, nor did I have time to wait. I had to be in Knoxville in an hour and a half, and it was a great job, so I wrote on a sticky note, "Thanks for the opportunity to work at IBM. It was a great job. Wish you the best. I'm out." Not exactly the best way to quit a job, but it worked for that day, and I never saw him again, nor did I pick up my check. I didn't. It wasn't that much money, I don't think. Thinking of that, I probably should have. Hey, Maurice. And Maurice just came in the studio. Maurice, grab some earphones. And I'm going to tell one more. Since Maurice is here, I'm going to go to Say It, Don't Spray It. This male grooming trend really stinks. More than 80% of young women think men these days are dousing themselves in far too much body spray. And no wonder, 75% of guys admit they're overspray, mostly because they think the scent fades too quickly. Newsflash, dudes, it apparently doesn't work. But it's not entirely their fault. The majority of men blame their overzealous body spraying on the fact they were never taught how to properly apply it. It's never too late to learn, and our sciences will affect you. Maurice, you smell nice. What are you wearing? He does.
Hey,
I was reading
don't
that.
go down that road. I was going to pick on Andy for a second. Say, does Andy do all that stuff?
No, but he wears cologne occasionally.
No, I'm big on that. You know, I got to spray myself. You know what? I have no idea, to be honest with you. My wife buys them for me. So, you know how us, most guys anyway, listening, let my wife kind of pick my clothes and pick my...
Your scent.
All that stuff, yes.
And, Andy wears a cologne. I can't even think of the name of it. I went into this little Indian-owned perfume store, and the guy spoke somewhat decent English, you know. And so I told him I was looking for a scent, and he gave me one, and it was great. So that's what Andy wears. But you know what? He has had the same bottle. I guarantee you, 10 years. I mean, it's before we had kids.
Wow.
That's how much he uses it.
Wow.
And I have a friend of mine was telling me her husband likes really nice colognes, and that they often spend $200 or $300 on a bottle.
Right.
And she said he goes, and I won't tell you who it is, but you probably know. And so she said he will go through the cologne within 2 months. It's gone.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. That is amazing. My two favorite ladies. I haven't seen you ladies in forever.
I know.
Well, I walked in and seen both of you here. It's like, wow.
You said that made my Monday morning.
That did. That sure did.
Well, now, can you tell me, Maurice, this is a trivia question here for you.
Sure.
What kind of perfume did your wife wear?
Oh, my goodness.
Do you
Hey,
know?
I'm out. I've lost that one. That's a big bah, I guess, on that one. I have no idea.
Maybe she just wears different kinds.
She does, I'm sure. You know, it's, gosh.
You
I
would
need to
fail
pay
at the
more
newlywed
attention.
game.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. That's terrible, isn't it? Terrible. I think we just take each other for granted after we've been married for so long. You just don't pay attention to some of the little stuff, but I'm working on it.
Andy better get it from me. I have worn the
No
same
pressure,
perfume
Andy.
since I was 18 years old. I had a boyfriend, was my first love, my senior year of high school. It turned out to be a loser. He really did. But at the time, I didn't think he was,
Right.
But he gave me a really nice, expensive bottle of perfume, and it was Bob Mackie. And I have worn the same perfume since I was 18, and now
Wow.
I'm 37.
And they still make it.
They do.
That's
but,
great.
But you know what's interesting? The funny thing is, I don't know how this works, but you know how with perfumes, they come out and they're very expensive in the department store.
Right.
Then over the course of years, you find them at TJ Maxx and places like that.
Right.
So at the time, it was at, $100 at Parisian.
Sure.
And now you can find it for like $16
That's
at
great.
TJ Maxx.
That's great.
And it's great because I stock up on it when I find it.
That's great.
They don't often, I don't even know if they make it anymore. Maybe the stuff I wear is old and it's going to break me out in hives one day. But I'll just spray it on my clothes then. I'll figure something out. I'm hardcore
That's
on that.
great.
Well, Maurice, tell us about your new business that you've started.
Well, it's more of a contract with the state of Tennessee. It's focusing on pre-diabetes. This is kind of the thing that the CDC is really focusing on tremendously as a national message on a national level. The CDC a couple of years ago finally realized that if we don't find a way to combat, I guess, or to slow down the development of diabetes, the healthcare costs, the loss of lives, the damage that it does to the body, and the struggles that people have to go through because of diabetes cannot be sustainable. It's spinning out of control. As a matter of fact, when the CDC went out to research diabetes or pre-diabetes is kind of the early stages of diabetes.
What are the signs of that?
When you go to your doctor, you really want to ask your doctor to let you know what your A1C is. The letter A, the number 1, the letter C. That's very, very important. And I always tell my clients, don't just let the doctor say, oh, you're doing fine. No, tell me what the number is, or get a copy of your physical. Look at it yourself. You want to look at your A1C, the most crucial one. If your A1C is between 5.7 and 6.4, and anybody listening out there with family history of diabetes or possibly A1C issues, this is measured by 1/10 of a point. So don't think of it as 5.7 to 6.4, or if you're at 6.6 or 6.8, somehow that's close enough. No, every 1/10 of a point matters when it comes to your having a heart attack, or potentially losing your eyesight, or potentially having amputations. That becomes very crucial. So if you're in that number category, you're a pre-diabetic, they're saying that if in the next 5 years you don't really change your lifestyle, and normally, like every disease out there, if you don't start exercising, if you don't change your diet, if you don't change just the way you live, within 5 years of diagnosis, you are going to become a full blast diabetic. And as a cancer survival, a person that survived cancer myself.
But yours was throat, right?
Yeah, it was a spindle cell. It was in my trachea. As I go out to speak around the state, I tell people all the time, I think next to cancer, diabetes is the worst thing you can develop. It's just my personal opinion.
Right.
This is not research or anything, because the side effects, it's awful. We're talking amputation of body parts. We're talking heart attacks. We're talking blindness. We're talking kidney disease. And on and on. It's horrible. Of all the diseases you can possibly have out there, for the people listening, especially type 2 diabetics, you got to take your medications, just like the doctor tells you. You got to start walking a little bit. You got to drink more water. Just the basic things we've been hearing our whole life
Yes.
is, lifestyle changes. So the CDC, I became certified by the CDC and got a contract with the state of Tennessee, and I'm in charge of Middle Tennessee and East Tennessee. I was on a conference call before I came in. I just told them I have to bail out. I said, Sissy will kill me. I've
That's
rescheduled
right.
on her twice, and I said, I can't be late.
That's exactly right. You got to be there. You got to give us the
My
info.
buddy Andy, I will never let Sissy down. So it's exciting to be part of that study group on a national level, kind of leading Middle and East Tennessee. The state is really committed. Our governor is just an amazing governor. He's just really committed to making Tennessee healthier, not just the employees, but the state as a whole. And he's got so many programs going on. And this is one of many programs that the state is offering. But this is more focused on the employees right now. We're testing about 500 employees in the first year and see how well they do. But it's going really good.
Have you seen any numbers as far as what is genetically based diabetes? What percentage of people who are diagnosed are, within their control, environmental versus genetic? I know that with cardiovascular disease, often people will say heart disease runs in my family, when the true numbers are that only 10% of those with cardiovascular disease it's genetic.
Sure.
Sometimes people will say, well, my mother had a heart attack and my grandmother. Well, but they were also obese with poor eating habits that were just passed down. And that was the true reason. It wasn't that it was in your genetics. Now, I wonder with diabetes what the numbers are.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's two types of diabetes. Type 1 is more of what you've mentioned, okay? It's something you can inherit. Type 1 develops sometimes at birth, sometimes at a young age, even before you're a teenager. Usually weight gain and bad lifestyle is not the reason for type 1. 99% of the time, that's more something hereditary. Basically, your pancreas just don't produce any type of insulin to offset the sugar you're consuming to break it down properly. Type 2, that's self-induced. I mean, that's been well diagnosed. Probably, I'd say over a 90% category would be self-induced. Now, what's amazing here in the last 15 years in our country is that you really saw type 2 diabetes, which is the one associated with all the side effects that we discussed a moment ago, the heart attack, the amputation, the blindness. Usually type 1 doesn't have those side effects with it. It's more controlled by, most type 1s wear a pump,
yes,
or they have to use insulin shots. I mean, their body will let them know when it's time to take that insulin shot, you got to take it. You can't just say, I'm not going to take it today. Type 2, you don't have those immediate signals that the body sends you, like when it's time to take your pill, your blood sugar is dropping too low or it's too high. People take it for granted. They don't take their medicine, they don't exercise, and then they're developing all these side effects we discussed. So, the CDC is saying that, believe it or not, Sissy, is that 33% of people in America today are pre-diabetic. 33% of our nation. And is the point I want to make?
That will develop it over the next 5 years?
Yeah. I mean, that's today. As we're talking, there's 33% of our nation, but...
So that's why they are seeing it as a primary concern.
Definitely. And here's the point I wanted to make, and I kind of, you know me, I can talk forever. So I get sometimes drifted off and go on with something different. But type 2 diabetes, up till about 15 years ago, only saw it with people on the average after the age of 40. You get out of college, you get married, you don't take care of yourself, you have kids, it's called life. And all of a sudden you're 40, 45, 50, and you're put on 20, 30 pounds. You're not really taking care of your health. You're not eating right. And all of a sudden you develop type 2 diabetes. Here's the scary part just in the last 15 years. And it's a part that really that statistic touches me more than all the statistics I've seen in my career, almost 30 years. People that now we're seeing type 2 diabetes develop with teenagers. So the line has moved from 40, 45.
Because of poor eating choices?
And we're passing it on, as you mentioned, to our kids and grandkids. And so now we're seeing it, then it slid down to 30, 25, 20. Now we're seeing it under the age of 10, kids are developing type 2 diabetes. So what does that mean? Mom, dad listening out there, pay attention to this. Now, I got 2 babies that are teenagers. You got 4 beautiful boys. Aww. No girls in your family. So,
but what I find interesting is that I think back, here I am, I'm 37. And when I was in school, I could only think of 1 or 2 kids who were overweight in our elementary school, in the entire elementary school. And now as I'm seeing in my own kids' classrooms and my niece's classroom, it's amazing. They'll have almost half the kids in the room are overweight.
It really is. And just to finish that stat, and I want to tell you a little bit about what you just mentioned, kids that develop diabetes under the age of 14 for the first time in the history of
type 2
diabetes, for the first time in the history of our country, those kids not all of them, but a huge percentage of those kids could die before their time before their
Yes.
parents. This is alarming. I mean, so take someone like me. Gabby, my baby girl, is 15. Matthew is 14. If they had diabetes, I'm 47. I stand a good chance to outlive my own kids. What this country is going to be facing in the next 20 to 30 years is so alarming. We haven't even scratched the surface. We think healthcare is a problem now and all the stuff going on, and we haven't even seen diabetes because of that statistic. It's one thing to have high blood pressure. It's one thing to have cholesterol. All those are dangerous. I mean, I'm not saying take those lightly, but mom, dad, if you haven't really made a decision to say, I need to change for my kids' sake, even if you don't feel up to it, even if you don't have the motivation or the tools, there's a lot of great programs that hospitals offers, maybe your company offers, research a little bit. You need to start making changes. And if you do nothing but commit to walk in 20 to 30 minutes a day, drink your 64 ounces of water, and clean up your food. You know what's healthy and what's unhealthy. I mean, it doesn't take a dietitian.
What, Maurice? You said a few years ago, and I didn't listen to you back then, but since then I've changed my mind, and now I know you were right. Years ago, you told me pork is not the other white meat. And I said, oh, Maurice, you just say that because aren't you Lebanese?
Yeah, but I'm a Christian Lebanese.
But I thought maybe they don't eat that over there.
No.
And so
we
in my
sure
mind,
do.
But that was what I thought. So since then, I have realized he's right. It's disgusting. Now, occasionally we'll still eat bacon.
Right.
The kids love bacon.
Me too.
But I do not make a pork roast. I don't do pork tenderloin.
Yeah, I just don't
do
buy
pork
it
chops.
in bulk and cook it at the house. But I want to touch on something you said a second ago. The fear of the visual is scary now. When you said you were in high school, only a few kids. The problem in our country now is there's so much of it going around that we're not even alarmed by it anymore, and that's scary psychologically. We talk about that a lot when I get a chance to go out and speak to groups.
It's very common.
It's very, very scary. There's a local pastor that I love close to my heart, and I keep in touch with him, said something to me that I've been sharing, and I never mention his name. He's an awesome guy, but he said something really amazing. He said, I was traveling to Russia or something, Ukraine, and we're with a tour group and people that translates and drives them around. And so one day after being there for a few days, he asked the guy driving them around, he said, is there any overweight people around here? And the guy said, yeah. And the pastor said, where are they? He looked at him and he said, you?
Oh.
He said, Americans. He said, we can spot Americans when they come to our country. And his pastor said, I felt so small. He said, man, and he said, I thought about you then, me. He said, I remember Maurice just telling me all the time, you got to take care of your body. In order to be mentally sound, you got to be physically sound. In order for your spirit to be sound, you've got to be physically sound. When the body breaks down, mental and spiritual, including being able to be a strong mom and dad and a strong leader in your community. Without your health, none of those really are possible to some degree, because your health can derail you from doing those things. So to me, the issue of just teaching what I've always taught, and I've had great success where we just reported the 8 weeks in Middle Tennessee and East Tennessee. In the first phase, we're doing 250 people. In the second phase, we're starting in March. We're doing 250 more. That's the 500. In just our group of about 110, because the rest are in Memphis, of the 250, we've lost 733 pounds in the first 8 weeks.
Wow.
And the biggest loser, the male loser, lost 22 pounds. The female loser lost 16 pounds in 8 weeks. And we do it just by showing people how to grocery shop, eat a healthy breakfast, drink your water, and walk. You don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be a runner and a cyclist. You don't have to be discouraged about exercise. Just walk.
What do you think about all these nutritional supplements going around? I just said that. I started off the show today talking about those. What do you think, Maurice?
Well, that's up to individuals to make their own decisions. I mean, it depends on which article you read and the source of the article. Remember, 99% of all supplements, and that's just across the board, are only tested in tubes. And usually when you read articles about certain supplements that says it does X, Y, Z, they're not lying, but what the results are in laboratory in tubes in comparison to how they respond in the human body are two different things. So I'm just not a supplement person, even though in my career, 30 years almost, I've done everything. I've sold supplements in my health clubs when I used to have health clubs and personal training studios. And so I'm not for it or against it. I'll leave that up to individuals, but don't go out there and spend hundreds of dollars a month thinking, I'm taking like for example, I just found out the omega-3 pills, people taking it for their heart and stuff. And they're saying, listen, just eat 3 ounces of fish every week, and that's equal to all the pills you're taking. Well,
and you probably get more of it because you're eating from the direct source of the fish.
Exactly.
Because you absorb more through food rather than you would a
no
supplement.
No doubt. So, that's some of the things we teach. So I'm not so much to go out and tell people, don't take supplements, they're bad for you, or do take them, because the medical industry, probably 2/3 of it just disagrees with supplements. Now, some people would say they say that because you're taking away from their income. People don't take their medicine and they don't go see their doctor. They want to do it themselves. I don't know if that's the case. I think, is there some merit to the supplements? Bottom line is, if you feel better taking something, keep taking it. If your budget allows you, great. I mean, one good thing about supplements is we don't see any major side effects. You don't hear of people dying from taking their vitamins, so, could be okay. So that's where I stand, kind of somewhere in the middle. I'll leave it up to the individual. My job is just tell them the facts. Is don't buy into every article you read and somehow think, that's it. That's the Bible. No, don't be careful. A lot of them are being paid by those suppliers to say what they say. So you have to know where the source is coming from as well.
And be careful on the ingredients. A couple of years ago, or maybe it was probably 2.5 years ago, a friend of mine was selling Barisha skinny tea. And it was the coffees too. And so I tried it, and it tasted great. I loved the flavor of it. So I started drinking it. I would drink it in the morning. And Andy said I was becoming obsessed. We would go out to the cabin. I'd have to have my Barisha skinny coffee. I'd have to have it in the morning. And I really loved the flavor of it. Well, before long, I was sitting at the museum center, and I was at a meeting, and I started drinking a cup of it. And I started having severe back pain and just a horrible headache. And I left. I went home, and when I got home, I knew something wasn't right. I was just in unbelievable pain. Kind of a funny story I'll tell you on that. Andy, we had an agreement. He came home a little early so that I could go to this meeting at the museum. And the agreement was that as soon as I got home, he would go to the Elks Lodge. And so he was planning on waiting for me to get home. Well, when I got home from the meeting, he was in the back with the kids playing, and I just went upstairs and laid down. Well, he comes around and sees the cars in the driveway or in the garage, and he's like, she came home? She didn't tell me? So he comes upstairs, and I'm laying there in bed, and he said, what are you, now you're taking a nap? Oh, he's got plans. So I said, I don't feel good. And he said, oh, that's just great. This is just opportunity when I'm getting ready to go.
Right, on my time.
I just ignored it, Well, then he goes back downstairs, and then I started feeling worse, and I thought, I feel like something is awful happening.
Right.
So I go downstairs, get in the van, I'm backing out of the garage. Well, then he comes around the side of the house again. Now where are you going? Because he's thinking, this isn't fair. So I yelled out the window. I said, I'm going to the emergency room. And then he looked and he said, oh my gosh, if it's that bad, I'll take you. And I said, or he said, well, call an ambulance. And I said, I'm not waiting on an ambulance. I'm driving myself.
Wow.
And so I went, and by the time I got there, I was throwing up in the parking lot. Long story short, it was a gallbladder attack. And I ended up, 2 weeks later, I had to have my gallbladder out.
Wow.
So I didn't know if it was directly related to the skinny coffee, but what ended up happening. So I had the gallbladder out, waited about 3 weeks. And then I thought, I'm going to go back to my skinny coffee because I really liked the way it tasted. And I thought it did, it curbed my appetite. Took one drink of it, started feeling just horrible pains. And I really believe that even though they said it was somewhat natural caffeine and other things in it, it caused those problems. I mean, I never had issue before.
Well, let's talk about the word natural. Listen, folks, no such thing as natural. Natural is only if it comes off the tree or a plant, and you get it directly into your body. Once it converts to powder, pills, and stuff, don't buy into that junk. There's no way it can stay in a natural state. For example, vitamin C for the longest time was believed for decades, and the industry made billions of dollars, worldwide, selling vitamin C, especially in the summer and this winter, to avoid colds. Well, finally, about a year ago, the truth came out, and they said, we apologize for 20 years of misleading information. We didn't know. It just turns your urine yellow. Well, we talk about that all the time, and you can't change the natural. Now, eat an orange, you get all 3 key factors for the vitamin C to really benefit you, meaning you got to have the bioflavonoids, you got to have the fiber, and you got to have the vitamin C. but you must eat the entire, once you peel the orange, leave it and eat it as is. Yet you can take a peel and you don't get a third of what an orange does. But it's funny about multi-levels. A couple of years ago, if you recall a drink, I don't remember the name of it, but it was supposedly made out of mango juice, the mango seed. And I love their stories. Oh, there's fields in Brazil. It's always Brazil. I don't know why Brazil is the country. All natural, this heals cancer, this heals. And that to me is the message that irritates me. It's like, quit misleading people. I wish there's such product. I want people to heal. I don't want people to be sick, but don't mislead people, because that's what they're told to say, and they join these multi-levels, and they go out there, and they're just like robots. They just repeat it. Well, Berkeley University came out with a huge article saying, time out. You guys, number one, there's no such thing as the mango juice. It's mixed with orange juice and pineapple juice. Number two, it's only been tested in tubes. It's never been proven in people. So the message is absolutely wrong. And people were spending like $60 a bottle, and a bottle would last like 2 weeks, and people were just spending money left and right and swore that hey, if it worked for you, great. But I don't buy into all the hype. I'm the biggest.
It reminds me of the Monavi. A
It's
few years
very
ago.
close of it, and they disappear, right? They show up and they make a lot of noise, and then 6 months later, a year later, it's like,
Yes.
where is that product? Well,
It was
because
delicious to drink. I don't think that a little shot glass of it was doing that much good.
It was going to heal your body from every
No.
disease there is. So we want people to be cautious and use common sense. Can I mention the Lord on this when I'm talking? Because it's
Yeah.
my passion. But you can't change the way the Lord made the body. Mankind can make you believe that pills and powders and bottles and whatever it is, somehow it's an easy shortcut, and don't buy into it. You can't change the way the Lord designed the body. You got to eat your fruits and vegetables. The reason why we're having great success at the state, for example, week 9, we're already in week 10, but I spent the whole session telling people, do you know the power of vegetables? Are you craving food all the time? Is that one of the reasons why you feel like you can't lose weight, because you're craving sweets and salt? And, well, do you know the power of vegetables can stop that? Well, just teaching people that, they go, you mean? And I told them, okay, next week your homework, everybody, 120 people. I said, everybody's job is to go make sure that one of your snack is a Ziploc bag of raw vegetables, just broccoli, cauliflower, carrots. Just take that with you to work. If you want a little bit of light Italian dressing in that bag, just to marinate it overnight, let it sit in the fridge, and with the vegetables, let it marinate. Now you're actually eating tasty vegetables. And I want to hear from you guys if your craving is gone late at night after dinner when most people are usually snacking. You're listening, Andy? And
He's at a funeral.
oh, is he? And because he admits that. He's like, man, I love ice cream. He said, and once I start, I can't
don't buy
stop.
it. That's why I don't buy it anymore. I don't buy Pop-Tarts, and I buy crummy cereal.
Right.
Because he eats too much of it.
Yeah, and so learning, I think it's like the truth of education, why we're not really out there teaching, how the vegetables can nourish the cells in the body, and by nourishing the cells in the body recognize it as being full, then the body stops the craving. It's amazing. Yeah, you can go to a local fast food restaurant, eat 2,000 calories worth of fat and junk, and your belly is full, but you're still craving because the body is really starving to death, even though the belly is full. You understand?
Yes.
So the power of vegetables and fruits and good fat like avocados and salmon and those things satisfies the body so much that you don't have to load up on 1,000 calories to feel full. People say, what is your number one breakfast? And I tell them, when I eat a cup of light yogurt, Yoplait, a banana, and an avocado, I can go about 4 hours without craving any food and feel
That's a lot.
absolutely. But it's only about 400 calories in comparison to a plain biscuit being 500 calories, not counting fat and sodium.
This reminds me, Maurice was doing a wellness group at somewhere here in town a few years ago, and Andy, my husband, knew that there would be a lot of people working, and so it was weigh-ins, people trying to lose weight, doing exercise routines, using those resistant bands and whatnot.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember this or not. He was going to be helpful and nice because everyone had, everybody got up early and they came in, and Andy went by and bought everybody chicken biscuits.
Right, he did.
And then I think you or someone said, "What are you
I love
doing?"
him. He's
Andy
crazy.
said, "Well, it's chicken. It's fried chicken on a buttered biscuit." Andy thought he was being helpful.
He's a good guy. He meant well. He meant well. So
I know. He was giving them reward for their hard work.
that's right.
Well, I do want to share one thing with you that's kind of, I need to make this change as well. One thing that is so hard is that to eat healthy is often expensive. But just as anything, you either pay now or you're going to pay later at the doctor's office. And it's so expensive when you go through the produce section, and especially, if you're someone who wants to eat organic, but just eating raw vegetables.
Can I disagree? Can I disagree with the comment that it's expensive?
Oh, you don't think?
I don't think so at all. I think it's the lack of planning and people reacting at the last minute, or they go to the grocery store and they overshop. They take a specific list. Oh man, we can do a whole session on grocery stores. They spend millions and millions and millions of dollars. We become nothing more than rats in a laboratory. We walk notice all the grocery stores. When you enter, which direction do you turn? Right?
Yes.
There's a science behind it. Why do you start in the fruits and vegetables section? There's a science behind it. Why do you think the salt and the sugar is buried in the middle of an aisle on the floor, not on the top shelf? There's a science behind it. Why do you think the dairy section, the milk and the eggs, are in the far left corner of the grocery store? Folks, we are being played like puppets. There's experts that spend money, knows how we react. Products that are favorite by women are set up at a shelf at about 5'6" because that's the average height of a female. Products that are preferred by guys, they lift the shelf up to about 5'8" because that's the average height of a guy. Why is there toys in front of certain cereal? Because you put your kids in the buggy at the height of the kid's eyes. So when the kid stops and looks at the toy, they scream for that certain cereal. You buy it just to shut them up so you can finish the grocery shopping. My point is, you have to understand that if you plan ahead, you choose your recipes carefully, you print them from the computer. Beautiful technology. Now, you can print 1 million recipes a week if you want to, right? There's millions of them on the net. You don't even have to buy cookbooks. But I disagree, because now when you buy frozen fruits and vegetables, let's say it's expensive to buy fresh or find good ones, or you feel like you throw them away because you don't go through them fast enough and they spoil. I agree. Buy them frozen, for example.
I do, because it has the same nutritional content.
Even
right?
better, frozen has better nutrients than fresh, believe it or not, because fresh must be actually picked in a green stage, because there's a period of time you must package it, box it, get it on trucks, transport it across the United States. So by the time it makes the stands, it's got to look fresh. So you're losing a lot of the nutrients in fresh. Frozen, you can't buy it, you can't pick it when it's green and freeze it, because it freezes green. So you actually must allow full, ripening before you pick it and before you freeze it. So actually, your fruits and vegetables, look for the sodium only. Certain companies will freeze them with less MSG. Some have no MSG at all, or sodium, which is better. So I would only look at sodium if I'm buying frozen, and find the brand name that has 0 sodium. That would be your best choice. Now, all of a sudden, it's not so bad. I mean, really, the meat, okay, you can't afford salmon, for example, and the expensive fish. Okay, eat more chicken and turkey. Okay, is it the same as beef? I mean, you got to buy some meat, right? I mean, you got to cook with something. So when you look at the price of chicken, whether it's Tyson or any, it doesn't have to be organic, because that's another topic we can talk about. Is organic really organic? We don't believe so. And 90% of all the organic is not. There's very few police monitoring organic. Only the state of California has a huge number of what we call state police monitoring if organic is truly organic. The rest of the states may have a handful to monitor the entire state. So good luck. So I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying, if you just buy the real stuff and really make that lifestyle change, you don't have to spend extra money. I think you'll be fine. And so when people say, but it's expensive to eat healthy, not really. It really isn't that expensive. If you really sit down and put a plan together for someone and then come back and ask them, did you spend any more money this week than you did the previous week? They come back and say, you know what, it wasn't. Plus, if we're going to talk expense, if you eat out once a day, that's on the average of about $8 a day. That's about $240 a month for one person. So if you're a family of 3 or 4 that's eating out once a day, you're spending close to $1,000 a month on eating out. So you want to come back and tell me that fruits and vegetables are expensive? The two don't add up,
That's
so
true.
If you're going to look at expense, look at your entire expenses on the daily basis and where it's going when it comes to your food. Don't just look at fruits and vegetables and say, my goodness, $6 a pound, that's ridiculous. You go get a burger from a fast food, you spend $6. So don't, you got to make a decision. I'll tell my clients, if you don't eat out but once a week, do it the way it was when we were young, when eating out was truly a treat. People dressed up a little bit and felt good.
Right.
It's like, hey, we're going out to eat. We don't have that anymore in our country. It's so common. It's not even fun. It's expected because nobody goes in the kitchen anymore. Nobody wants to take the time. So I think there's more to it than just when people say that. We don't buy it, because I could sit down and show them step by step that the statement is not true at all.
Well, two things I do want to share with you. First of all, go to Aldi. And I know I like to shop local and I like to shop at Cook's. But if you're looking to save more money, I do recommend trying Aldi, because
I hear it's a great prices and good vegetables too.
They do. And they do have, if you're an organic person, they do have an organic section. A friend of mine just went over there recently. She has a certain brand of strawberries that she loves, but she can only get them at Whole Foods, and she can only get them at Fresh Market. She said she walked into Aldi last week and they carry the exact same brand for half the cost.
They do. And if you want good quality meat, I love Cook's. I mean, even, the prices are good. I think their quality is good. I think the Cook's family does a great job locally with their meat section, in addition to other things you may find. It's up to you, find the place. I think really the biggest reason behind inconsistency with eating healthy is a lack of planning, and people don't want to cook anymore. They find it easier at the end of the day. For example, I tell clients, if you go to the grocery store on Saturday and you spend $150 to $200, you get all your meat, vegetables, and staples and all this miscellaneous. Now you're in a position where you have to cook. It's no longer, it's Monday afternoon. You pick up the kids from a ball game at 6 o'clock. You're rushing home. That's always the number one excuse. Between the kids and ball games. But if the recipe is laying on the counter, the food is in the fridge, that's called planning ahead. You're 24 hours ahead of the actual ball game, 24 hours ahead of. Now the kids are screaming, I'm hungry. Instead of saying, let's go through a drive-through and pick up something at 6 o'clock. Now you're going to say, nope. We're going home and we're having recipe X, because you looked at it that morning, you laid it on the counter, you had a plan. You're fine. You can get home while they're taking a shower and changing clothes and get ready to do homework. You're in the kitchen fixing it. So it's not as difficult as we make it, but the lack of planning. Remember, if you failed to plan, you plan to fail. Right. And that's a fact of life. It's the lack of planning in our society that always makes eating healthy and exercise so time-consuming and difficult, and I don't have time. No, we're not buying it. It's learn to plan and commit and watch.
And it doesn't take that much. But I'll tell you something. We went a couple of years ago, Andy and I went to a sustainable seafood event in Chattanooga, and it's always one of my most favorite things to do, and it's put on by the Tennessee Aquarium. Well, the speaker that they had in, the guest, was Alton Brown from Food Network. Love him. He does good eats. He's got all these great cookbooks, and it's the science behind cooking. And something that he shared with us, which I thought was genius, and I had not ever thought of this. He said oftentimes we think when we go to the seafood market or the seafood section at the grocery store, we're getting the freshest seafood in that counter. You are not. You're going to get fresher seafood by buying it frozen. And so what he recommended was go to Costco or somewhere like that, buy it in bulk. They'll have a multitude, 10 different varieties of seafood, and you're going to get fresher seafood by buying it frozen, because a lot of it is flash frozen in individual packages. I find that not only is it half the cost buying it that way, I'm able to bulk up. I've got it in my freezer, which is good for me. I live out in the country, so I'm a good 15 minutes from any grocery store. And we've been doing that a lot. Also, another tidbit I want to share with you, just so you know. Oftentimes you'll go to a restaurant and think you want to eat healthy and you're going to order the fish. And if you're ordering tilapia, it is horrible for you. It is so laden with saturated fat. It has more fat in it than a Whopper. And just keep that in mind. And it's disgusting, because 98% of tilapia that is imported and served in the United States of America has been brought over from Asia. It's come from Burma. It's come from Thailand. And what do they feed that fish? They feed it fecal matter.
Right.
It is disgusting.
If you want to learn about fish, there's a free app. If you have a smartphone.
We were talking about apps earlier.
I'm looking at it right now to see if I can find it real quickly. It's a fantastic app.
But you probably knew that already, Maurice, about tilapia?
I did. It's called Seafood Watch. It's an awesome app. I mean, it tells you which part of the ocean, whether it's good, whether it's bad, which one has the best protein, and it's free. I mean, literally, it's awesome. You just download it, and I'm sure you can go to seafoodwatch.com. I'm sure they have a website if you don't have a smartphone. But, with today's technology, there's no reason why you can't educate yourself. What is more important in your life than your own health? Yet we don't take 10 minutes a week to sit down and do a little bit of research, to check out things. What is more important than your own kids? Your bad habits, you're passing them on to your kids. So when parents tell me, and I understand as a parent, I will die for my kids, I believe it. I believe every parent out there will put their body in front of their kids if they were in danger. But when you feed them all these, for example, MSG, it's in 80% of all the food at the grocery store and restaurants. And I'm not talking fast food. I'm talking sit down type of a restaurant, and people don't know anything about MSG, and I tell them, Google it for 5 minutes, for heaven's sakes. The food industry found out that consumer has figured out what MSG and the danger of MSG. They changed MSG. Now you can't even find it on ingredients anymore on your label into 50 different words. So they changed, once they know the consumer figured out something, they changed the word. So then you look at the ingredient list and you're going, oh, it's not in there. Oh, yes, it is. It's an 80%. For example, people want to lose weight. Did you know that MSG activate fat cells production in your body, and the more fat cells you have, the bigger you get? So the more you eat out, the more you eat canned food, the more you eat out of boxes and cans. And
a study was a few years ago, if you recall.
MSG is a number one killer in America for obesity.
Mice lived longer on the cardboard box than they did the cereal. Do you remember that study?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that unbelievable? So if you're a cereal eater, that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and cereal, to me, it's one of the worst breakfast items in the world you can eat. People have no idea. They think, oh, but we're eating cereal. And I love that, the passion, like, hey, we're trying to eat healthy, so I have to stop and say, you know what, you have better options out there. For example, the latest on eggs, talk to your doctor if you have cholesterol, etc., and get their opinion matters the most, not mine. But eggs are the number one breakfast food in the world.
Hey,
Go ahead.
While we're on it,
Sure.
Let me tell you as we wrap up real quick.
Sure.
Give us the definition of MSG.
MSG is a preservative used, that's the simplest way I can put it, where people can understand it, to help to keep the flavor, the color, give it a longer shelf life, which means the food industry is making more money, okay? And it's not your grandmother type of pickling style where she's just using regular salt and stuff. It's a chemical designed to do that, and companies have to do that. For example, take a major franchise. I don't want to pick a name and it sound like I'm picking on them. Any of the big ones we have in town that are nationwide. There's no way for them to make the sauces and the meat and all the stuff and ship them to all the restaurants around the country without actually adding MSG to preserve them, because otherwise they would lose their shorts financially on these products. They would spoil. MSG, and part of what I teach is that obesity is not always due to the lack of exercise and nutrition. It's the actual certain chemicals in certain food that is causing your body to activate certain things that is causing the problem. So number one, I tell my clients, no more canned food. If you do nothing by listening to this show in the last 30 minutes, say, okay, I'm not going to eat anymore. You can do that. You can just get rid of all the cans in your pantry except maybe tomato paste to make spaghetti sauce. You know, I mean, there's going to be a few little recipes where you need a tomato paste. Okay, get them. But to just buy soup and beans, and when you can buy them dry and natural and put them in water.
Oh, the soup is incredibly
It's
laden
incredible.
with sodium.
Oh, definitely.
Awful.
Definitely.
Well, you've just been a plethora of information.
Well, you're a doll, and it's always a pleasure.
Well,
I love you and Andy so much. You guys are the best.
Well, I wanted to, as I end, I do like to end with a good recipe for the week. So you'll have to forgive me because it does involve a can.
That's all right.
And so just this is very easy. You can provide this, make it for your kids early in the morning, put it together maybe even the night before. Pumpkin muffins. This is actually a Weight Watchers recipe, and it's super duper easy. It's hard to imagine how it comes together, but I promise it will. You buy a can of pumpkin, and you're going to get a box of spice cake mix, and you mix the two together, and then you put them in your muffin tins and you bake it.
That's it.
That is it. 2 ingredients. And folks, they will turn out so moist, delicious, low calorie. Serve it with a side of fat-free or low-fat cream cheese, and you've got a meal or a great healthy snack. I don't eat it with the cream cheese, but my children love it. And we talked about the dill was the Stitch Fix. Try that out. If anybody tries that out, Stitch Fix, and decides you're going to spend the money on it on that app, let me know. I'd love to hear about it and how it turns out for you. Also, one last thing I'm going to leave you with. You want to get healthy, you want to exercise, maybe you want to de-stress in your life and have a little yoga. I do provide I'm a yoga instructor, and I teach a free class every Wednesday night. Broad Street United Methodist Church. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to pay a thing. Don't even have to have a mat because I bring extra, and you can borrow one of mine. So $6.35 on Wednesday nights. It's free. I've got great music, and I always end with a little mini massage. And don't take that the wrong way. It's a nice mini massage, and not anything else.
Yeah, for the weirdos, don't come.
Yeah, exactly. If you want a massage down low, stay at home. Want a massage up top, you'll get it from me. So with that said, thanks for joining in. May peace be above you. May peace be below you. May peace be all around you. And may peace be with you. Thanks so much.